You're listening to the Tony Conley Morning Show on more compelling talk radio, 1320 WILS, 1320WILS.com. Talking about money is never easy, especially with someone you love, and especially if you're talking about keeping it for yourself. While we commonly think of prenuptial agreements as contracts for the soon-to-be-wed wealthy, you don't always enter a marriage with riches or guarantees that the bliss will last. Let's learn a little bit more about prenups and more couples saying yes to prenups with Tim Hoch, who's a 1320 WILS and Fox News Radio legal expert. He's a trial attorney as well as a family law attorney. Tim, how are you?
I'm great. How are you this morning?
I'm doing very well. Are we seeing a trend here with more couples saying I do to prenups?
Well, I think so. Younger couples these days are just more in tune with, and they're a little smarter with respect to their finances and their financial affairs. And I think they take a more pragmatic approach to these deals. And I've seen an uptick in prenups.
All right, and when we think about these, we think about the wealthy, we think about the rich and the famous, not so much just everyday folks doing this.
Right, and I think that's changed because I think folks realize that there's going to be an accumulation of assets over the years, and it's easier to address it now than it will be later. I see the tail end of it, right? I see when everything's falling apart, and I see my job is to disentangle the accumulation of assets. And so these are really nice vehicles that they can use to sort of address those issues up front. It just makes good financial sense. I mean, a marriage is romantic and it's an emotional partnership, but more than anything, over the course of time, it's a financial partnership. So it just makes good sense to address that. And it doesn't necessarily belong to the rich.
It seems like asking for a prenup would take the romance out of planning for a wedding.
Well, that's why you have to time it. See, it's a good lesson in timing, and it's a good lesson in communication, right? I mean, don't drop it on your soon-to-be spouse the day before the wedding, and don't drop it on a week before the wedding. Make it part of just the regular planning. Make it part of the checklist. Don't just drop it.
Does it mean that folks could be planning for a divorce?
Well, that's sort of a common misconception. I don't think so. I think people do estate planning all the time, right? They do wills and they do trusts and they do other things with their money. They plan for retirement. It's just another notch just another check or box that needs to be checked when you're being responsible for your financial affairs. And if you treat it like that, it should go down a little easier.
It's interesting to think about this. The story made me reflect on conversations me and my wife had, and I can remember us talking many times about, okay, what's our individual plans career-wise? How much money do we have? How much do we want? What do we want to do? What are we going to need to be able to do that? Do couples do that enough? Do you think we should look at marriage more in a business sense?
No question about it. And again, like I said, I see the tail end of it, right? So I see what happens when they don't do that. And I definitely think that folks need to look at it. Look, we're going to hope for the best and plan for the worst. It just makes sense. And it doesn't just have to be rich folks. Think about if you have a son or daughter that wants to go to medical school and they have a spouse that's going to put them through medical school. And we see this all the time. Well, and then, they put them through medical school and they work and they do all that. And then they get a divorce 2 or 3 years later after the spouse gets out of medical school. Well, that's a financial wreck for the person that put the other through medical school. And so there's a lot of circumstances at play here where folks just should protect themselves.
How do they work? What's the basic prenup look like, and what questions does it answer?
It's it should be anyway, a very detailed, binding legal agreement. You should sit down and make a complete inventory of your assets down to even the tangible assets, not just money, but heirlooms and things that mean something to you, even the dog, right, or the pet or something. So make that, and then just very simply state, here is what happens in the event of divorce. And you can even have what are called sunset provisions. So let's say, for instance, you say, well, look, after the circumstances will change after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Marriages change. So you may want to revisit the prenup every 3 to 5 years, or you may even put in a prenup, this is only effective for 5 years, or this is only effective for 10 years. Because once you've been married 15, 20, 25 years, a prenup you made 10 years ago isn't going to be applicable.
We've been talking with Tim Hoch, who's a 1320 WILS and Fox News Radio legal expert. Tim, appreciate your time so much, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Have a good day.
And thank you for listening to the Tony Conley Morning Show on 1320 WILS, 1320WILS.com.